What was the best accidental nudity you've seen in person? I took a cruise vacation with an excursion in Santorini, Greece. There is a bus that winds along the coast that takes you from the port of Fira to the picturesque vistas of Ia. The drive takes about 30 minutes on a lightly traveled road along the cliffs. We rounded a bend on the bus and a young woman was squatting along the side of the road urinating, butt exposed. She fully mooned half the bus as it passed. Her male companion, standing next to the parked car, grabbed his sides and crumpled over in laughter. I can completely imagine him saying 3 minutes earlier, "Just go outside. No one will see. We are in the middle of nowhere." A homeless man emerging from the sea like the birth of Venus at Fisherman's Wharf. The flock of European tourists screaming and taking pictures seemed to love it too. The Gravitron at a local fair. It was spinning around and everyone inside was held up against the wall, as you are on that ride. Apparently this woman's swimsuit top couldn't take the force and snapped. So this lady, she was held up against the wall with her swimsuit using one shoulder to hang on for dear life and with her titties flying out of control until the end of the ride. Girl I talked to for a little bit then kinda lost touch with, sent me pics. I messaged back that it was a nice surprise to hear from her again. Then I put 2 and 2 together and was like, oh, these weren't for me, were they? Never heard back. Ah well. Dental office was in building across an alleyway from condominium. Lady struts out at her place, curtains open full view for me as I laid in the dental chair in the dental office. Dentist sees my eyes widen as this suddenly happened. Oh, she must be up already, knowing full well what I'd just seen. My old office had an apartment building across the street. A very attractive young woman on the top floor absolutely did not give a damn about closing the blinds and she freely walked around naked every single morning. Ah yes, this happened at my work. I work at a swimming pool and I was cleaning out the group changing rooms. So I hung up the boards which told people the changing room was unavailable because it was getting cleaned. When I was almost done with it, I took the garbage bag out of the bin and threw it away. When I came back with a new bag like not even half a minute after, there was this girl in there already completely nude. After a second of comprehending what I was seeing, I turned around and closed the door and continued with some other work. In college, a girlfriend and I were going on a hiking trip. She was packing naked since she was in her apartment and we had changed in front of one another so many times that we were comfortable being naked around each other, no big deal. So when I was at the stoplight before her apartment, I texted her where I was so I should be there soon. I found a parking spot and walked up and knocked on her door. When I opened, she was naked, red and laughing. She was telling what took me so long and I was confused. So apparently about 2 minutes after I texted her, there was a knock on her door. Since I had just texted her, she assumed it was me and opened the door without thinking. It was 2 Mormons missionaries. One of my co-workers was on FaceTime with another one of my other co-workers and she was just getting dressed in her room. Well, I just so happened to walk by very much unprepared to see her naked. Fortunately neither one of them saw me and I'm not bringing this up no time soon. I was in the middle of a 30-mile bike race, 4 laps around this good-size lake. On the opposite side of the lake, a bunch of 20-something women decided to go skinny dipping in full view when 50 cyclists doing 30 miles per hour go flying past. So close to a Tour de France level crash. So close. Went to visit a friend who lived in a flat and had a buzzer on the front door downstairs. Someone who was coming out held the door open for me, so I went upstairs and knocked on the door. His girlfriend opened the door naked and my friend was out. She shut the door quickly, then opened it again when she had put something on. She said she thought it was him and didn't seem to mind I had seen her naked. 17 and my girlfriend and I went on a date. We are gone about half an hour and she forgot something at home, so we go back. We have been dating long enough. I get out and we walk into her house together. She lived in a split level, so when you walk in you either go up or down. I ended up in the lead and go up. Halfway up I just stop. Her mom and stepdad are doing the dirty, with mom doing a reverse cowgirl facing me. Our eyes locked for a second. My girlfriend pushes me to get me to move and walks past me and sees why I stopped. Her mom pulled a blanket from the sofa to cover up. My girlfriend is yelling at them. I just walked out. The picnic a week later was awkwardly uncomfortable. Well, there was this one time when a seagull made off with someone's bikini top. My friend, M31, and co-worker flashed me, F26, at work. This was years ago. We were working together on the midnight shift at a factory, building a large part for an even larger machine. We were discussing our favorite bands and the ones we've seen in concert. Then we started talking about some of antics we've seen some of these entertainers do, like smashing guitars, crowd surfing, pulling fans on stage, etc. One performer neither of us saw live but heard about was Jim Morrison flashing the crowd. I thought Jim'd mooned the crowd. My friend decided to demonstrate how the flashing went down, so he hooked his thumbs into his waistband to mime releasing his junk. Except he caught his underwear too. Myself and a couple other co-workers got to see the live reenactment in the middle of the shop floor. Oops was all he could squawk out while shoving everything back in place. Those of us who did see were dying of laughter. He apologized profusely and avoided us the rest of the shift. Good times. Edit, punctuation and grammar. Playing rugby in secondary school, one of my friends running with the ball gets tackled from behind. He hits the ground face down. As the other player tackled him from waist height, my friend's tracksuit trouser and boxers slid all the way down to his ankles. It was a blinding full moon in the tacklee's face. Both teams in hysterics. Good times. We were 15, and went to an outdoor pool. My friend forgot she wasn't wearing a bikini top, and pulled her shirt off. First time I saw bare boobs live. 12/10ths experience. My sister's best friend accidentally went nude into my room after showering. That was just the last of 1,000 hints that she was into me. Me and my friend were riding mountain bikes on some trails. We were probably 12 to 13. Had to walk bikes up some steep section. Suddenly two dudes get up from behind a bush and start pulling on boxers. We turned around and went downhill as fast as we could, in mild panic. I was just looking out my bedroom window once, just checking the weather, when I spotted the neighbor undressing in her bedroom window without closing her curtains. She didn't notice me and I honestly didn't intend to stare. When I was 7, my family went on vacation with our neighbors. They had a bungalow right next to ours and I went over there to see my friend. He answered the door and told me to come in, and right as I walked in, his mother was just getting out of the shower. She walked out of the bathroom completely nude to go to her bedroom and I saw everything. I was only 7, so I didn't even know what it all was yet, but I knew it was all good stuff. She saw me, screamed at my friend and closed the door. My friend just started laughing, which was a nervous tick he did whenever he knew he was in trouble. 25 years later and I definitely have had a thing for older women most of my life, and this is probably why. Posted this before, but it's a funny story about accidentally being naked in public. My wife and I went camping with our 2 kids in the Adirondacks 2 weeks ago. After 2 days of sweaty swimming in the lake, sleeping in the tent camping, we decided it was time to go to the campground shower facility. We were all pretty stinky. My wife takes our 4-year-old daughter with her into the girls' side and I take our 2-year-old son. He's an adorable little chunky kid, and like most 2-year-olds he finds most things funny. More on that later. The place had 25 stalls and the whole facility was empty. I identified a shower stall, put all of our shower crap in there for cleaning our respective undercarriages, and set to undressing the boy. He's naked and inspecting the water coming down from the shower head. I can see that he's interested in the cascading water, and I know from past experience that I have at least 10 seconds before he's distracted and moves on to the next thing. So I get undressed, and turn around to enter the shower with him. He's gone. I step out of the stall, naked, and I don't see him. I look in the next stall, which is empty, and he's not there. Then I look up and he's running to the exit about 20 feet away. And here's where I made my mistake. I ran after him thinking I could get him. I do the best dad voice I can muster and command him to Oscar, stop. He's giggling and looking back, not even slowing down. And then he's out the door and I'm still 5 feet behind him. I had no choice but to follow him out into the parking lot in all my birthday-suited glory. There was no time to turn back and get a towel. It was a sunny afternoon. There was one car other than ours, and I will forever remember the look on the poor woman's face. She was sitting in the passenger seat, alone in the car. I was 10 feet away from her, a completely naked 39-year-old man, running after a smaller, cuter version of myself. She did the only thing she could, pretend it wasn't happening. She was good too, at pretending. But we both know what she saw. And I'm sure she's telling her side of the story back at her campsite too. When I caught the little giggler, I couldn't help laughing out loud. I turned back to carry him inside, covering my private parts with his little white body. TLDR, I had to surrender my dignity for my son's safety. At 14 I lived with my brother, 24, and his then wife. Bro needed help working on a clunker boat someone sold him and had it set up just outside his bedroom window. Not entirely relevant but makes the mix-up funnier. My brother and I have similar builds and features as siblings do, with one notable exception: I'm biracial and he's white. Sil didn't realize he had me out there with him, and since it was poorly lit didn't notice the skin difference, so she pulls the blinds up while standing there naked as she knocks on the glass. We were both in for a surprise when I popped up. He comes walking around the corner to catch the end of what's happening and just falls down laughing. We had some awkward dinners and rides home since she was the one I was around most, and then like 3 weeks later it got even more awkward when they had to help me with a testicular issue. Not accidental per se, but I was not meant to be there to see it. So, I was on holiday in Oslo and there is a park that is littered with statues of naked people. Different materials, all sculpted by the same artist, Gustav Vigeland. That bit of the park is accordingly named Vigelandsanlegget. The biggest group of sculptures is the monolith, which features an obelisk made of people, surrounded by stairs on all sides, and blocks topped with statues beaking the stairs in different segments. As I take in the sight and take my time to surround it, summer rain starts and most tourists run for cover. Not me, I got a raincoat with me. 2 rather attractive American tourists, both women, remain as well, along with some guy. They both pull down their tops and lift their skirts for a few pictures, probably to blend in with the statues. I liked it, and at the same time it was very weird. Good-looking family of 4 in swimwear playing around a narrow waterfall in a desert area in southern Utah. No one else around except me and my buddy, hiking by. No exaggeration, the dad looked like a Navy SEAL. He stepped under the waterfall and the force of the water instantly knocked his shorts to his ankles. He stood there looking kind of dumbfounded while his wife and 2 sons absolutely howled with laughter. The sight of his incredibly sexy body has stayed with me for years. I was new at a job and needed to go ask my boss a question. She was being measured for a gown in the back room and I walked in. She was standing there in nothing but white panties while the tailor was measuring her. I wanted to play it cool, but averted my eyes quickly, and instead of asking a question I sounded like a bashful goofy impersonation. Oh gosh. She just crossed her arms and waited, and I cleared my throat and asked where something up front was kept. Didn't bother covering anything, just answered my question, and I thanked her and left. I could hear them rolling laughing after I left. How embarrassing. It was my first job after leaving my very conservative small town as a young adult, and the moment I realized that in this area I'm more old-fashioned than most people. We normally made jokes and would flirt with each other, but casual nudity was very surprising. In high school, almost the end of the year, Teach gave us a free period. He told us we could sit where we like, but we need to keep the volume to an acceptable level. I was tired, so I laid on the floor between one of the rows of desks. While I am down there, a female classmate sat by me and started talking. At one point, our conversation involves something about which gender is better or something. I am not sure how we got there. She had a huge crush on me though, but I did not, although I should have. At one point she says, "Women are better because we can be horny and no would know." She then gets up, purposefully walks over me, letting me see right up her skirt, and exposing her vagina for my eyes only. Teenage me had to get off my back after that and tuck that sucker up the waistband. Working in Florida, stayed at a Motel 6. It's a little past midnight and we're hanging by the grimy pool when an argument breaks out in one of the rooms. A bearded biker-looking guy stumbles out of the room and walks off. Moments later, a lady in a thong with titty tassels walks out yelling at him that he owes her money. She must have loaned him some money earlier in the day. When I was a kid, it was 1970s in London. I was in Harrods about 7 and I was bored. My mum was trying on clothes, so my sister and thought a good game was to rip open curtains at the changing rooms. There was a pretty woman like Twiggy in her bra. I can still see the look of horror on her face. I was shocked by a woman in a bra. I'm 53 now, I still see that poor woman's face. My mother gave me a good hiding. Ironically, I'm gay. When I was around 11 to 12, I had long hair, I am male, and we did a carnival dance kind of thing and boys dressed as girls and girls as boys. Well, I got there early and I was changing into the dress and then belly dancers came in like 15 grown women and well, they completely changed and never realized I was a boy. I am kind of proud of that moment. Smile. When I was little, around 3/4, I was staying with this rich couple and their same-age daughter in their huge house in San Francisco with my parents, who have been friends with the wife since college. We were sitting around the dinner table when it went silent. Me, not fully aware of myself and the privacy of others, pondered to the table in a loud high-pitched voice, "Mummy, why is their daddy's willy so much bigger than my daddy's willy?" Fair to say my dad choked on his drink as the table erupted in laughter. Needless to say, I'd apparently seen my friend's dad taking a pee. Although I don't remember the event taking place, it always gets talked about every Christmas at family dinner. Sorry, Dad. Many years ago, my friends and I were eating at Chipotle. I had to go to the bathroom. They only had 2 bathrooms, unisex but lockable. One was locked, the other one was unlocked. I opened the unlocked door, and a red-headed female employee was process of changing her clothes. I did get a good view of her naked. However, I knew this was not right, so immediately apologized and closed the door. She must have been embarrassed because I never seen anyone leave a Chipotle that fast. My childhood neighbor used to be a manager for some exotic dancers. As I discovered one day when I was outside in my parents' garden, they used to audition in his back bedroom, which I had a perfect viewing angle to see how talented the new recruits were. My parents were just pleased I was spending time in the fresh air. I was maybe 14 to 15 years old. Our local community pool had a swim team competed with other neighborhoods. At our pool, the lockers room split for men's/women's. On the right was the men's, on the left was the women's. Well, we went to a competing neighborhood pool and it was opposite right/left. I walked right into the women's lockers room after a swim meet. Room was full of girls about my age and older, all naked or near naked. I froze at the sights. All the girls started screaming and I bolted. I got into a lot of trouble and tried to explain my mistake. Was kicked off the team that summer, but it was worth it. Wind lifting dresses on a street corner where I sit for coffee. Most women panic trying to cover, but some don't bother at all and just let it happen. Oddly, it seems that the women who panic usually are wearing panties while the ones who don't panic are not wearing them. This confuses me, but I am very grateful. Once when I was in my teens, we went to one of those indoor water parks. I had found a good vantage point to look down at the crowd who had gathered for a giant bucket that would fill and then tip, dousing the crowd at regular intervals. A woman's breast popped out of her bikini top due to just how hard that water came down. I had to have been like 15 and really wasn't expecting to see a boob in person that day. She had no idea I did. I don't care how many times this question is asked on this sub, I love reading the comments. Was in gym in high school and this woman had a fantastic ass and she was wearing spandex shorts and for some reason she was fixing a wedgie but she pulled down her shorts and I saw everything. Ah yes, I was 18 or 19 delivering pizza. Walked up 3 steps to ring the doorbell and there's a window. Naturally look through the window to see if anyone is coming to the door and the woman is walking out of the bathroom, presumably fresh out of the shower. She hadn't quite finished wrapping her towel and saw full frontal view, very nice view. Felt like a bonus tip for the delivery. I was working high detail security and one evening I had to watch cameras for a couple hours. One group of camera views was the inside of elevators. Lady and her friend walk into the elevator casually chit-chatting when one friend turns into the corner to hide herself so she can adjust her top. She didn't realize she turned to face directly at a camera. Saw full frontal of the top half. Always check elevators for cameras. As a bartender, the occasional nip slips from drunk women in low-cut shirts is always a fun surprise. Mom, your areola's hanging out. Was sitting at my cousin's house barbecuing hamburgers and hot dogs. Drinking a 24-pack of Bud, listening to music. My cousin had this pool in his backyard, one of those above ground ones. Him, his 2 sisters and his sister's friends who were women, were in the pool. They all get out but one of my cousin's friends who stayed in the pool wanted to swim a bit more. She had a 2-piece bikini on. When she came up for air her breast was hanging out because the top part was a bit small for her in general. Kinda dropped a couple of burgers I was transferring from the grill to the plate as I looked up and saw. I had a co-worker frantically and embarrassingly ask me to go through her computer and make sure all the nudes of herself get 100% deleted. My work was implementing a new order processing system and everybody was told that the IT company we outsourced to would be going through our computers to make the transition more seamless. She panicked. She was taking topless selfies to send to her side fling and for some reason was saving them on her computer and sending them from her work email. Needless to say, it was about 5 minutes of some solid titty gazing. Not quite accidental, but I know for a fact that that morning she wasn't planning on anybody seeing her tits at work. A lady flashed my Ring camera, lifted her top, to tell her friends she had arrived. She was at the wrong house. She was mortified when I answered the door and ran away. My wife and I still laugh about it. Big party when I was about 14 that had 2 of my mom's co-workers. They were 2 totally different kinds of hot, and I was all about them. There was a pool, where everyone was having a blast. But then the 2 of them decided the trampoline looked fun. And in the process of one trying to launch the other, both of their tops came off. And they were focused on self-preservation for a good 4 seconds before trying to fix anything. When they finally did stand up to fix the tops, I noticed one of their bikini bottoms did what she later described as the tug aside, meaning it slipped over into the corner of her inner thigh. That was a good day. My current neighbor. We've waved and had quick conversations, but nothing more than that. An attractive young woman for sure. I had just pulled into my driveway and getting out of my car when I see her looking through her car for something. No biggie. I get out, and look again to say hi and I see her bent over picking something up off the ground. Dress, no panties. Nice view. I didn't say hi, just looked away and went inside. I was working part-time fitting wardrobes and we were working in this one house. I was about 15 at the time and their daughter was about 17 or 18. She came out of the bathroom after a shower with the tiniest towel in the world around her. More like a dishcloth than a towel. As she walked away down the hall I could see the cheeks of her bare ass and the best legs I had ever seen up to that point. I noticed afterward that they kept their towels in the bathroom, so she must have chosen that one. Especially, I was glorious to me. Walked back home because I took my contact lenses out without realizing I didn't have my glasses. Heard my girlfriend in the shower, so walked into the bathroom, door was open, to look for my glasses. She screamed and I couldn't figure out why. After about what felt like 20 seconds of looking through my blurry eyes, it was a big bathroom, I realized it wasn't my girlfriend but her very similar quite hot slightly older sister. Cue awkward apologies and some treasured if slightly blurred memories. Saw my best friend's mother's breasts. Known that family for 20 years at least, and it was so awkward and I think I stared a little bit too long. Many years ago, when I was a student, I went to Egypt for half a year to learn Arabic. During my stay, a friend, came to visit. She stayed with me for about a week, visiting Coptic Cairo, the pyramids, the citadel, the Egyptian museum, all the usual touristy stuff. One day after we got back from sightseeing, I decided to go chill out on the balcony. I used to enjoy sitting there, with a book, just kind of watching the world go by. The only way to get to the balcony, though, was through the room where my friend was staying. While I was out on the balcony, she decided to stay inside and have a rest on her bed. Fair enough. About half an hour later, I popped back inside the apartment to get another drink. There she was, laid out completely stark naked on the bed. This was difficult, awkward and embarrassing, because I really liked her as friend, but she was also very attractive. I was kind of frozen, but she just casually got up, without even trying to hide herself, and walked halfway across the room to put a dressing gown on. Meanwhile I made blustering British apologies and stumbled out of the room while trying to hide the instant erection you get when you are 20 and see a beautiful woman naked for the first time. We did not talk about it, we just went out for dinner. That was the first time I saw her naked, but not the last. We're married now. Edit: some people are saying, glad you got the hint, bro. Thing is, I did not get the hint. I also did not next 3 or 4 dozen hints after that. I just assumed she was being practical when, the following year, we decided to go on holiday together and she insisted on sharing a hotel room, separate beds, though, because Jesus. I reckon she was just being polite when she invited me over to her place. Several months after that, cooked me a meal and then danced with me in the starlight. I thought she was just being curious. The year after that, when she invited herself along to meet my parents. When she told me she loved me, before I deployed to Iraq, I thought she meant, as a friend. After all, we were good friends, we had a lot of tastes and interests in common. When we hung out together, we'd spend hours sitting up just talking, late into the night, about everything and anything, theology, philosophy, ethical issues, career plans, favorite names for children, all the normal friend stuff. I had no clue. For years. Then it all kind of clicked at once. Further edit: people are asking how I could be so dumb. I should explain that I had zero experience with women. I went to a single-sex school. More than that, I was just kind of dorky. I wasn't a cool kid. My interests were geeky. At a time before being geeky was socially acceptable, not tech. I was into history and stuff. I had a fairly low estimation of my own attractiveness. I dressed in the clothes my mother bought me. In contrast, she was cool, exotic, smelled divine, and had the finest pair of breasts I'd ever seen. Everything about the way she was and moved was just so far out of my league. She was also courageous, honest, passionate, fiery, had a really strong visceral faith, compassionate to the most disadvantaged, and a fine cook. There was no way she could possibly find me attractive. She'd be my friend, because her interests were similar to mine, but there's no way, I thought, she'd like me in that way. I once sent her a draft constitution for an imaginary utopia, and not only did she read it, but she sent it back with notes and comments. There's no way she could possibly like me romantically or physically. That, at least, was my thought process at the time. I realize now it was very stupid. But I didn't want to ruin a good friendship by reading more into it. Final edit: people are asking how she finally got through to me. So, several years later, she sent me an email, along the lines of, "So, dude, you've been my best friend for years. I want a husband. I want that husband to be you. If you ask me, I will say yes." So then I thought, wow, I might be in with a chance here. We've now been married for 13 years. We've had our ups and downs as all couples do, but we are mostly happy and I love her very much. I was taking my dog out to do her business one night. One of the neighbors' houses across the way had a large window in the front with a view of the upstairs/balcony area. It was dark out but they had all their lights on so it stood out. While my dog was doing her thing, I looked at their house and noticed a naked woman leaning over the upstairs railing, obviously talking to someone below. Her hair was wet so she probably just came out of the shower. She looked pretty nice. Just a few weeks ago in a sports shop went to try on new shorts. Opened a dressing booth door which was open, green text which says vacant, and a stunning hot blonde was there just on her thong. Of course I apologized and closed her door in a second. But got still a great look at her body. She didn't even try to cover herself. This one time, at band camp, literally, I was on the bus waiting for everyone to catch up. I was sitting alone, slumped in my seat, reading. A girl came on the bus, and readjusted her bra without realizing I was there. It was a full readjustment. The next year at a party, she just full-on flashed a group of us guys, so it kinda diminished my earlier experience. When I was 7 or 8 I played with the grandchild of the family next door. One day I was in their house and I popped upstairs. There was a gap in the door and something caught my eye. I looked through to find this girl's very normal adult auntie stood in front of a full-length mirror with her back to me. She was stood in full lingerie, corset, bra, stockings, and suspenders. It was the normal child reaction. I mustn't look. I don't know what I'm seeing. I can't stop looking. It lasted for a few glorious seconds, then I turned and ran down the stairs. I just realized typing this, that it is the only time I've ever seen someone in person in full lingerie. I'm 40. Time to buy my beautiful wife a present. So she can laugh at me and tell me to put it on. I was 13 to 14 at the time and my mum wanted me to pick something at the neighbor's, F35 to 40, house. I don't even remember what it was. So she calls her who agreed and was like, yeah, tell him to come pick it up. 10 mn later, I knock on the door, she opens totally naked, pretty hot, 7/10, and she tells me to get in. I was 100% confused but she didn't seem embarrassed and acted like everything was normal. So I did the same and waited for her to take the thing I was coming for, looking at her walking around naked in her house. Then she came back to give me what I was coming for, and said, oh shit, I forgot I was naked. Sorry, I answered, oh shit, you're right, I didn't notice, and left. Honestly, one of my best memories ever, lol. I was like 14. Next door neighbor's super hot girlfriend came over to meet our new puppy. She was wearing a sundress. She bent over to pet our dog and gravity basically allowed me to see completely down the front of her body. First boobs I ever saw. This wasn't nudity, but given the context it was pretty racy. I was 16 and played drums at my church. One Sunday we were having a baptism, and there were these 18-year twin girls getting baptized. The church had these white full-length gowns that everyone had to wear for baptism. Well, the twins had decided to each wear their tiny bikinis underneath, and we ended up with quite the wet t-shirt contest in the middle of Sunday morning service. I was on stage behind the drums and directly facing the baptism. I remember the next week there was a box of brand new dark purple gowns. I was like 5 years old. I was shopping with my mom and she said to wait while she tried some clothes. But 5-year me was impatient and was probably scared. So I decided to open each clothing room one by one to find my mom. I saw 2 women changing from 2 rooms. First one just laughed it off because I was a clueless child and casually closed the curtain. Second one screamed and made a bit of a scene. Her reaction was probably the reason why I remember this story. Few moments later my mom found me and she didn't know anything, hopefully. So yeah, not really accidental but cool story. When I was about 7 we were camping and me and some holiday friends were building some castle in the sand pit and getting water from a small river to make the sand wet. One of the kids said there were naked people in a nearby tent so we scurried off to see. Even though it's many years later, I can remember that young slim woman and those full rounded breasts like it was yesterday, which is surprising really, as I fell in the river and nearly drowned shortly after. In my early 20s, my group of friends stayed on an island in the middle of a local lake for a weekend. One of those friends lived nearby, so we used his house for staging and raiding if we needed more supplied food, water, etc. We used a few canoes to get everyone and their gear to the island. On the second night, at around midnight, I went with one friend to get more supplies, booze, from his house and beached the canoe on the shore. When we got back to the canoe, we saw that it was no longer beached, a few hundred feet away from shore, and 3 people were inside it having a good time. We shouted at them, and they immediately quieted. They brought the canoe back and we saw that the 3 occupants were one guy and 2 girls around our age. The 2 girls were completely naked. Apparently they had the thought to go skinny dipping in the middle of the night, saw our canoe, and thought it would be even more fun to steal it. Lots of laughs, blushes, and apologies were had all around. When we got back to the island, nobody believed us, and we had no way of proving it. TL, Dr. Naked Chicks stole our canoe. When I was 20, I toured with a Christian rock band. Anyways, we were driving through a big city in the Midwest. Could have been Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, etc. I don't recall, but a red van pulled up right next to our van. I was driving, and I looked over to see a college-aged girl was in the front passenger seat. She was holding her shirt up, flashing her giant awesome tits. She was smiling and laughing, and then the van sped away. My drummer was sitting next to me and he saw it too. We started cracking up, and then our keyboard player in the back was like, did you guys just see the? Yes. We both said in unison. It was a good day. This was around spring break 2004. I was walking my then boyfriend's dog with him, and there was a girl standing in front of her window in a bra, and I jokingly said, "Take it off." Her window was shut and we were still pretty far away, so she didn't hear me. We both chuckled, then she took off her bra off. We looked at each other in shock, then kept walking. It was neat. Years ago, I was on a first date with this very nice lady, and we had decided to go to the top of a downtown Los Angeles hotel that featured a rotating bar, to watch the city scroll by while we got to know one another. The only way to this bar was on one of those glass elevators that go up the side of the building. Now, this building is just 4 cylinders located around a main, bigger cylinder. The view from the elevator not only shows you the city, but you can see into some of the rooms as you go. We were chatting as we went up, when suddenly, just off her shoulder, I spy a couple, fully naked and having sex up against the window of their room. I am so shocked that I stopped, mid-sentence, and laughed. Of course, she then starts wondering what is so funny, but by this time we were looking past the room. When we got to the top, I told her what I thought I had witnessed. She then laughed and suggested we go back down to confirm my sighting. We did, but apparently they had finished and were no longer visible. I still, to this day, laugh about that incident. Edit, changed a few words for clarity. I was at one of those Halloween costume stores when I was 17, and these 2 girls were changing in one of the rooms, and it was just a curtain, no door. I just happened to walk by at the perfect moment with my friend, and one of the girls walks out to get a different costume, and for that split second I got a full view of the other girl completely naked. Well, she had a thong on, and I remember just stopping where I was with my mouth open, then looked at my friend. He was doing the same thing. Was the highlight of our day, lol. Maybe not the best, but certainly the most memorable. The 100-year-old guy. Edit, context. I was covering as temporary scheme manager in an assisted living facility where all residents had their own small flat/apartment and were independent, other than some needing outside carers come in a couple of times a day. My first task in the morning was to bleep every resident via the internal call system. If there was no shouted reply to affirm they were fine, then the procedure was to try again in 15 mins, as some were slightly hard of hearing or merely just in the shower etc. If no response at all, the next step was to go over and knock on the door / ring the bell. No answer, we would use the master key to open the outer door a few inches and shout. After that, I could enter the very small property to ensure they were actually at home, and not unwell. All residents had alarm cords and pendant necklaces in the event of overnight emergency. This occasion I finally had to enter, again, a whole other story, and within a few feet I could see into the bathroom, and the dear old guy was stark naked doing ablutions over the wash basin. I hastily backed out immediately with a huge sigh of relief, and the image burned into my retinas forever. Luckily he never even noticed me. Lol. When I was about 14 I was in school, and my Spanish teacher, who was hot as fuck, was wearing this very thin loose top. The material was kinda bunched up around her tits so you couldn't see her nipples poking through, but she had a lot of cleavage going on. She dropped something on the floor and bent down to pick it up, and I got to see her left nipple. It was wonderful. I saw my middle school girlfriend's mom right out of the shower. We were both surprised and she covered up quick. I apologized, but it was too late. I had already seen everything. Two of my neighbors always leaving their curtains wide open and walking around naked. Yep, that's Amsterdam. And same situation with a neighbor in an Airbnb I had in Krakow while in vacation. I was about 12 or 13 staying over at a friend's house for the night. I got up in the middle of the night to pee. As I was walking to the bathroom I passed the archway into the kitchen, and his mom was in there grabbing a beer completely naked. Once I was hanging out with my weed dealer in a park, and some girl came there to buy some weed from him. It was summer and she was wearing a summer dress. When she sat down on the bench, one of the straps of the dress over her shoulder fell down and exposed her boob. She wasn't wearing a bra. I saw my mom's two friends' boobs cause they got changed but left the door open. In the army, flying around in a helicopter from fob to fob, checking minefield maps in the zone. Each fob gas a porta potty, and that's it for facilities. After going inside the command center to do my work, I walked out to the toilet for a quick break before the next 40-minute flight. I opened the door, and there's the female pilot, standing, pulling up her underwear, with her flight suit around her ankles. No bra, hot, and probably not needed. They were glorious, regardless. I was obviously shocked, and took a little too long to react. She looked at me, and calmly said, "Seen enough, Sergeant?" I said yes, Mom, and shut the door fast. The thing about it that still makes me smile to this day, was how confident, shame-free, and casual she was. It was clearly an accident. I was clearly impressed and delighted to see them, and she didn't hate me or get angry for it. I didn't feel like a pervy peeping Tom, and she wasn't guilty of not hiding herself in shame. I saw it as absolute beauty, not sexual, and I'd like to think she recognized that. It was just a very cool moment of humanity in the middle of nowhere for both of us. Such a wonderful surprise. I was 12 at the public pool, a good-looking girl that was a TA for college. She went down the slide with a bikini and went down with it following behind her. The lifeguard had a towel almost immediately. Weird story, was driving. It was a hot day around 35 Celsius and above, when this, presumably drug-addicted, older woman was walking in my direction on the footpath to my left, only she was topless and wearing her bra and shirt on her head. I will have to admit that it is not how I'd imagined I'd see boobies for the first time. Oh god, I just read like 50 of these before remembering I have a story for this one. In Costa Rica with a student travel program, we spent 2 weeks next to the most incredible beach you've ever seen. It was an absolute dream, and we'd get to swim most days if not all. Once, while we were at the beach, one of my friends pulled me aside and said, "You have got to try taking your top off in the water, it feels amazing." I think about it for a bit, and sure, yeah, I take my top off in the water. It was deep enough that no one would have been able to see anything, totally fine. This becomes kind of what I do when I go to beach. I'd get in, and once I was kinda alone, I'd take off my top and swim and fight the waves and all the usual things. One day I got more adventurous and decided to go all the way, top off, bottom off, skinny dipping in the waves. But the thing is, there was no way to put my swimming garments on the beach without streaking, so I just held them and they kind of reduced my ability to swim effectively. Which is of course when I started getting pulled into an riptide. So I started doing what I'm meant to, swimming parallel to the beach, trying not to panic, aiming towards a group of my friends, 2 girls, 1 boy, who seemed to not be in the riptide and were closer to shore. I was swimming like crazy, but barely moving because of the drag of my swimming stuff and barely being able to use my hands. I tried screaming to my friends that there was a riptide and that I was naked, and I think they heard, but I also kept getting waterboarded by the waves. I finally got close-ish that they could see how naked I was, so one of the girls yells to the boy, who was her boyfriend, to turn to face the beach, probably too late, and then a wave carried my entire naked body directly into her, full visibility. The guy definitely saw everything there was to see, and when the wave had pushed past us, we were dying laughing but also dying of drowning but also dying of embarrassment. And I was still newborn levels of undressed. Waves kept coming and the girl tried to help me put my bathing suit back on, and after several minutes we made it work. But she saw everything, and so did the other 2 people, and I was fully mortified. Working at a gas station, I was up in the air fixing a light. Girl pulls up in a convertible, opens the door to get out and gave me a great crotch shot. Her skirt was short, and no panties. Made the day a little better. I was a senior, 17M. I was sitting in my car in the parking lot at my high school waiting to go inside after lunch. I had a doctor's appointment in the morning. There was no off-campus lunch, so no one was in the lot. I see a fellow student, F, walking to her car. I thought nothing of it, but next thing I knew she was about 2 cars down, standing between her car and another. She changed her pants with no underwear and did a full bend over almost like she knew I could see. I never told her about it and didn't know her that well. I was like 16 or 17, and my girlfriend was about to change her top, so she just turned around in front of me and took her top off. She wasn't wearing a bra, so I could see her back and a side boob. I have a thing for girls' backs, BTW lol. We hooked up a few months later. It was the best. Guy at a camp thought he was alone when leaving the shower. High school pool parties. Being a child and enters in my mom's bedroom while she was sleeping naked, hot summers here. Same with one of my brother. I was maybe 5 to 7 years old. I remember directly see their genital parts. To clarify, each one of us had separate chambers and it was 2 different moments. Being a student, wake up at the middle of the night to pee, met my female roommate taking a glass of water in the kitchen, entirely naked. She was so surprised to see me, and me to see her, that we both startled, screamed. She broke her glass of water and she ran to hide herself in the apartment. Really funny actually. Still, as a student, I worked few hours a week in a retirement house. I cleaned chambers, knocked to the door of one of the resident, an old lady. She said yes to the knock and let me enter her room. I entered, she was naked and she didn't care at all. Edit, oh, I forgot, when I was 14 I spent the afternoon in a friend's home. Went to the balcony just to see the view. Her mom was on her transat, taking some sun, entirely naked. I don't know if she noticed me, but I hide myself very carefully to avoid her, and some multiples edit to correct grammar. My so is a twin. I don't remember exactly how many times it happened, but I saw my so's twin nude a couple of times. I count this as the best, because she has exactly the same body, just a little more muscular, as my so. Love my so's body and love to look at it. No difference for her twin. I was painting the upstairs spare bedroom, and while prepping the room I lifted the blinds out of the window frame. I almost fell off the ladder as I looked out and saw the neighbor's 20-something daughter going down on her girlfriend. An image that will always be burned into my brain. Yes, they were good looking. I'm very white, and I went to Six Flags with my friend's very Portuguese family when I was like 15. I spent the whole day slipping away a short distance because they'd all stop in the sun to look at the maps and plan rides and stuff, and I just can't stand in the sun, even with sunscreen. I don't burn with sunscreen on, but direct summer sun hurts my skin with or without. I stepped between two soda fountain carts that were pushed aside and not open. From that tiny shady alley, I heard a scuff behind one of the carts, so I leaned and looked around the corner. There was a completely nude Japanese woman in her 20s standing on a towel and folding her clothes, with a bathing suit on a nail in the wall. There was a water park here, but we weren't in it. I suspect she was changing to go on the big splashy log flume ride. I stared for a second, she looked up, and covered up, and squeaked, and I just said oh god I'm sorry and went to go stand in the sun. I could name several instances of these in more public settings, but my favorite is catching my wife while changing or hopping out of the shower. After 12 years, the spark is glowing strong. Ooh. I have one. I used to drive a truck delivering fruit juice in the CBD early in the morning. As a working man, I was largely invisible to the corporate types who were on their way to the office while I was delivering boxes of juice. One morning I was sitting in my truck going through my orders, parked on the side of the road. A young woman stepped between my truck and the car in front, but instead of walking through to cross the road, she completely undid her wraparound skirt to adjust it. Thank the heavens above, she was going commando. She obviously thought she had a second of privacy in the gap between vehicles. She didn't even notice me. I had no chance to react or even look away. It was over in seconds. When I checked into my first fleet unit in the Marine Corps, I was stationed out in Kaneohe Bay, Hawaii. My first weekend, I went with some of the other Marines in my platoon to the North Shore to chill on the beach. I was sitting there drinking a beer with my buddy and watching this girl run around in the surf in a skimpy bikini. After a few minutes, a larger wave came in at her and she kinda jumped into it to avoid getting bowled over by it. When she came up from the water, her top was gone. We sat there staring at her glorious breasts as they bounced in the sunlight while she frantically ran around trying to find her top in the water. My buddy tapped his beer can against mine and said, "Welcome to Hawaii, bro. Water slides, 3 times girl hits speed coming face first, rises with top down to her crotch." Not sure if this is the best, but when I was a kid, my dad and I used to go to the local Y and swim. We went a lot, and back then, late 70s, there were no family changing rooms. My dad had to take me into the men's room with the instruction, "Cover your eyes and I'll let you know when you can look." And I always did. We would sit down, I would cover my eyes, Dad would change, and then we'd leave. Never anyone else in there that I saw or heard. But then one day, I heard something coming from in front of me. Dad was behind me. I peeked. I did. And then I let out some sort of squeal because I saw the snake thing font some random teenage boy that I kind of knew about, but not really because I was a pre-internet kid. I just remember my dad's hand immediately covering my face, like he'd do at scary movies, and a rather stern talking to. I never ever uncovered my eyes in there after that. Smile. I was working at a resort and a gentleman stopped by the front desk to request firewood to his room. I was asked to run it. I guess I beat him back to the room, cause when I knocked, his naked wife answered the door expecting him. I was 15 and those were the nicest breasts I've seen in 23 years since. Riding our boat back across Gore Sound from spending a day on the beach, my parents, brother and his girlfriend, and my wife and I anchored up to a small sandbar. A guy's sitting on the edge of his boat and there's a girl in the water with her back to us. I don't see a bikini strap anywhere. Suddenly she stands up out of the water and we can see she's completely naked. Then she turns around to face our boat going by and gives us a big wave, breasts bouncing freely. My dad, brother, and I could feel the stares of our women, haha. Doing fingerprints for a background check for employment on this attractive lady with rather large breasts wearing a cut-off top. As she is signing her name, her purse slips down, taking the top with it, revealing the most beautiful set of milk jugs. Not even embarrassed, and as she walks out say, "You're welcome for the free show." My dumbass says anytime. I'm really comfortable being naked in my home often. I have floor-to-ceiling windows and live in an uprise apartment that looks out at a lot of other apartments. Before this, I lived in places where wandering around naked was fine. Was brushing my hair, relaxing on the couch, and looked out to see one of my neighbors spilling his coffee because he was too busy staring. Was quite mortifying at the time, but now I laugh on it. I've learned to cover up. Mostly, edit. He is a respectful older man who seemingly lives alone and who doesn't mention it at all when we bump into another. So I occasionally slip out of my clothes and lounge just for him. He enjoys the view, I enjoy being viewed, and it's kind of a sexy wholesome experience for us both. He's not a dentist. Ha ha. I was in Piccadilly Circus in London one night around 11 PM when a large coach stopped right by my friend and I, and we both looked up and saw about 15 women who were on the hen night lifted up their shirts and revealed their breasts at the same time. And yes, that was the best day of my life. Few days ago I was at a concert and this insanely hot girl my friend brought was dancing and her tits fell out. We both laughed and went on with our day, but goddamn. Not me but my friend. I was 18 and living in a 2-bedroom apartment with 3 other dudes who I considered friends at the time. Me and my GF at the time has just got done having sex. As we get up to get dressed, it takes me a split second to throw on some boxers. She had terrible eyesight, so she's trying to figure out which side of the bra to put on correctly. My friend walks in, sees her completely naked. Looks at her, looks at me, and then back at her. She screamed, "Do WTF?" He just made this face like he was impressed, shrugged his shoulders and went back downstairs. I couldn't do anything but laugh. It happened in between 2 shifts at work. I work in retail, and I got sent to help an exclusive store in our chain. The first shift was about to leave, and at that exact moment I got into the back room to get something and caught a glimpse of the really hot female co-worker that was changing. She didn't react much at all though, she just said that it was not really cool that I came in there and wasn't polite from my side. I agreed and backed out back in the store. That was it. She then went on vacation and I never saw her again. Kinda in person. I accidentally broke my phone a few years ago, so my mum lent me her old one until it got fixed. I subsequently found various stick pics in the gallery she forgot to delete. Awkwardly decided to leave them on when I handed it back. No words ever spoken. More recently I was sitting in a busy bar when the guy I'm texting sent me various photos of undress, no dick pics, and the group of girls behind me enjoyed them too. Was backcountry camping with a friend. On the 5th day, we are almost back to the bigger, more populated areas. As we paddled our canoe around an outcrop, we rounded the corner to see a woman bathing naked in the lake. We both continued to paddle, doing our best to ignore this gorgeous, naked woman swimming floating around. I benefited from her living her best life. Junior high, so maybe 13 or 14. Co-ed, summer camp. 2 girls are bitches to everyone, pals with each other, knockouts, BTW. Canoe lessons, I'm paired with one of the knockout bitches. At one point we have to practice trading places. I climb to the middle of the canoe and crouch down, she climbs over me. Her suit pulls to one side as she steps over me, giving me an unobstructed view of half of her pussy. I never let on, never said a word. This is the first time I've told a soul. The best accidental. Was coming home from work late at night and too tired to care. Had a nice lady of a neighbor just yell "Howdy neighbor." I looked up to say hi back. That woke myself up real quick, and instead of a hello I yelled "Bobs." She looked shocked and realized she was nude. When she jumped back I saw everything else too. She closed her curtains and hid back into her apartment. I'd what she was doing before, but she was full nude hanging out her window at 11 PM. The worst ever. My grandmother. 17-year-old me will never forget the giant wave pool at Wet n Wild in Arlington, Texas in the late spring of 1990. I'd just ridden a wave into the shallows when I turned around to go back out. I wore hard contacts at the time, and I couldn't wear them in the pool, so I was blind AF. I genuinely did not see this girl, probably my age or close to it, barreling towards me, also riding a wave. In a confusing sequence of events, she almost simultaneously lost her bikini top just as she knocked me back before landing chest first on my face. I hadn't intended that to be my first motorboat. I don't even think I knew the term motorboat. At any rate, I stood up and immediately pulled her up, wrapping her in a hug. She started to struggle, as any sane person might do, but she stopped as soon as she heard me loudly whisper in her ear. A quiet whisper wouldn't work, way too much noise in the wave pool. "Hey, you lost your top. Looks like one of your friends has it. She's coming this way. Just stay with me a minute longer and we can get you sorted." She stopped struggling, and I relaxed my arms but still kept hugging her with my arms wrapped around the upper half of her back. Someone would have had to have seen what happened to know her top was missing, and it all happened so fast, few others could have seen it. We stayed like that while her friend got her a towel after leaving the top with her, and then she wrapped herself in the towel, kind of turning around while I was still hugging her. Once she had the towel around her, I asked if she was ready. She said yes, and I dropped my arms. She turned back around, got on her tiptoes, kissed me on the cheek, and mumbled a thank you. We both blushed furiously, and that was the last I saw of her. I was 9. Knocked on the door of the gas station restroom. Getting no answer, I opened the door and walked in. 10th supermodel just standing up from the throne. In gym class in HS. I was a freshman and a few of the senior girls thought it would funny to run laps without bras and get reactions out of the boys. After the run, one girl totally forgot she wasn't wearing a bra and pulled her shirt up to wipe the sweat off her face. I developed a crush after that. It wasn't ever nudity, but boy howdy does high school theater and choir give you lots of opportunities to get a good view of scantily clad girls at just the age that is the most important thing in the world. I worked as a summer camp counselor and we lived in cabins that were basically 2 large rooms filled with bunk beds separated by a shared bathroom. I had the bottom bunk next to the bathroom door on the side opposite of where the door swing open into the room. One morning, I rolled over at just the wrong angle for the light from the bathroom to come through the gap created by the hinge between the door and frame to shine directly into my eyes. Very annoyed and groggy, I looked to see which dumbass camper had left the light on and instead see another counselor that I had a low-key crush on come out of the shower. The dude had a great body and was hung. Sadly, completely straight, but that was a very unexpected and very welcome way to be woken up. I told him about it a few years later and he thought it was hysterical. Then he told me he hooked up with my sister. Lucky bitch. Came home from college with a friend. Took my friend upstairs to introduce him to my dad. Dad had just got done taking a shower and was completely dry. I awkwardly introduced my friend to my dad in his birthday suit. My dad extended his hand and said, "Nice to meet ya." My dad never missed a beat. When I was about 13, my family went on a cruise ship that went out to international waters and turned back around. My grandpa spent a long time saving up to take everyone, and it was great. I was up on the deck and happened to look over at a drunk woman in a hot tub just as she said boob and pulled her bikini top to the side, exposing her left boob. Her friends all pulled her back into the hot tub. That was the first boob I had ever seen in real life and I remember it to this day. Accidental? Debatable. Monumental? Absolutely. Not sure it was accidental, but here goes. On a Monday morning I took the bus to work, started pretty early so this was the first bus. Almost empty and I sat all the way at the back. A few stops before I had to get off, a girl entered and sat down almost as far back as I had. She looked tired and exhausted and somewhat unshelved, like she was coming directly from an Oxpeel or something. When she turned to get into her seat from the aisle, her skirt lifted and I could see she was going commando. As I got up to leave a few stops later, she had one leg up on the seat next to her, exposing her privates. She had one hand between her legs, pleasuring herself, and winked at me as I walked past her and had to go to work. I couldn't get the image out of my mind the entire day. Quite memorable experience for me. Best female friend, she sent a vid over Instagram to me recording her Switch to show some scene from a Pokemon game she was playing. She entered a load zone, screen fades to black, and I got a reflective view of her big bare chest. Most of the comments here talk about women and girls being naked, but none of them are about guys, which shows how careful we are. I was 15, went over to my girlfriend's house. No one answered the door, but I heard someone in the pool. Went through the side gate and saw her 37-year-old smoking hot mother getting out of the pool. She was skinny dipping, and I swear during that 10-foot walk of hers from the pool to the chair to get her towel, I heard foreigners, "I've been waiting for a girl like you." Best part, when she looked up and saw me with my jaw on the ground, she just smirked, shook her head and said, "Kelly isn't home, lover boy. Come back later." Then she went inside. Yeah. Wow. Just. Wow. A childhood friend had a smoking hot older sister. I was about 12, she was 18. Everybody had the hots for her, apparently she did some modeling. One day I was at this guy's house playing Crash Bandicoot and his sister takes a shower. We normally left the door open, right next to her bedroom, just across the hallway from the shower. Friend runs downstairs to grab some high C, I'm left alone playing Crash. Turns out she forgot a towel and decided to make a dash for her room. It was brief, but my eyes widened and I was stunned. 2 seconds later my buddy comes down the hall. What happened? Eyes, nothing.